Next on Good Morning El Paso, former President George H.W. Bush is in the hospital this morning after a fall in his home. The latest on his condition.
The fingers have been pointed back and forth between county finance and the county treasurer. If a private citizen were to bounce out of mountain checks, they would be prosecuted for check fraud.
Questions over bounced checks in the Doña County Sheriff's Office. The details from our New Mexico Mobile Newsroom.
And things are not looking good for Spaceport America. Where did taxpayers' money go?
Live, where news comes first. From the Mesilla Valley and Las Cruces to El Paso and the borderland. This is ABC7's Good Morning El Paso.
A very good morning to you, El Paso, Las Cruces, and Juarez. I'm Stephanie Valle.
And I'm Floren. Good morning, everyone. Let's start things off today by talking to Crystal Clay about our forecast.
Yes, and Crystal, it's looking pretty nice so far.
It is. So far, so good in the forecast. This morning starting out nicely with partly cloudy conditions and your temperature right at 80 degrees. With those 80-degree temps, feeling nice out there as you walk out the door. Relative humidity is at 44%, so we do have the moisture as we have had the last few days lingering around our region. Chances of rain still only in that 10-20% chance range. 70 degrees is your temperature in Las Cruces, and right now winds are calm outside, so feeling pretty good out there with that 10-degree difference from El Paso. Under clouds and radar map, we've got cloudiness actually through our entire viewing zone this morning with some very light spotty rain that's trying to develop right near the southern parts of Hudspeth and Culberson County. Later on today, that slight chance of rain, well, doesn't develop much more. We're talking isolated chances out east and then a little more scattered out west. We'll track rain chances in just a few minutes.
Okay, Crystal, thank you. Former President George H.W. Bush is recovering at a hospital in Portland, Maine this morning. He suffered from a fractured vertebrae in his neck after falling at home. His spokesman says he is fine, in stable condition, and will not need surgery. Bush, 41, is the nation's oldest living former president, and he's hardly let his challenges slow him down. In fact, he marked his 90th birthday by skydiving near his home. We'll get to his health challenges in a little bit here on Good Morning El Paso. Questions over bounced checks. Doña County Sheriff Kiki Vigil told county commissioners that advanced checks for travel expenses by members of his department were not honored by the bank. Our New Mexico Mobile Newsroom went looking for answers. Vigil says the bounced checks from the county totaled more than $6,000. The money was for travel expenses to Salt Lake City, where deputies were recruiting and training. County Manager Julia Brown says the Sheriff's Office should have submitted those requests for travel expenses earlier. Brown blamed a mistake in the County Treasurer's Office for the checks not clearing. And coming up later, we'll hear more about what Brown has to say about the accusations of this being a case of fraud.
And new this morning, New Mexico Attorney General Hector Balderas announced a new fraud recovery strike force. The goal of the task force is to target those partaking in deceptive or unfair practices and recover public funds lost due to fraud. They will investigate these types of cases and work with whistleblowers to expose corruption. The group is already in the midst of litigation against companies accused of cheating vulnerable New Mexicans. Also from our New Mexico Mobile Newsroom, a Las Cruces man accused of attacking a police officer. Get this, using his teeth. 53-year-old Charles McNally allegedly bit an officer who was investigating an alleged domestic disturbance inside his home. Police charged him with battery against an officer and resisting arrest.
A former New Mexico State University student learned his punishment after he threatened to carry out a shooting at the university. Zachary Milton Hess was sentenced to 5 years probation. In May of last year, authorities say Hess threatened to carry out a shooting at NMSU. Back in March, Hess pleaded guilty to not necessarily sending out the threat, but for being an accessory and hindering the investigation. During that time, NMSU officials shut down the campus and reported it lost about 1,000 staff hours in responding to the threat. As part of his sentence, Hess has also been ordered to pay nearly $78,000 in restitution to NMSU. This morning, we're learning more about the future of Virgin Galactic's Spaceport America and its much anticipated commercial flights. Spaceport America near Upham, New Mexico, recently opened its visitor center just outside Truth or Consequences. Good morning, El Paso's Denise Olivas is live with the details. Denise.
Good morning, Stephanie. The Spaceport Authority's Executive Director, Christine Anderson, just released an update on its finances. And simply put, the Spaceport survived last year on past revenue. But legislative analysis say that revenue has run out. Virgin Galactic was expected to begin commercial space flights this year, but that was stalled after crashes of test vehicles and rockets in recent years. Flights are expected now to begin launching next summer. Anderson reported a 136% increase in ticket sales since the visitor center opened last month. But right now, the Spaceport is looking at potential financial struggles. There have been 23 vertical rocket launches to date, and revenue has covered more than half of the facility's operating expenses for the last 3 fiscal years. But because revenue is tied to leases and launch activity, analysts say that setbacks at Virgin Galactic will leave the Spaceport scrambling for revenue this year. Officials say the Spaceport might need an additional $1.2 million appropriation to avoid a shortfall. Hillary, back to you.
All right, thanks, Denise. Continue our complete coverage now of the escape of El Chapo Guzman. The latest updates are coming from Mexico's Interior Ministry. They're taking new actions in the search for Guzman, including distributing 100,000 photographs to highway toll booths across the country. Thousands of authorities are also on high alert, establishing over 100 checkpoints on the country's roads. Even hospitals, hotels, and funeral homes are being searched for Mexico's most wanted criminal.
And it is 6:06. We're taking a look at our TxDOT traffic cameras in East El Paso, I-10 and Airway. You can see that things are moving along pretty smoothly. Not a lot of cars on the road, but we'll keep an eye on things throughout the morning.
Former President George H.W. Bush is in a hospital in Maine this morning, as we told you, with a fractured neck after falling at his home. The 91-year-old former president is in stable condition, and a family spokesperson says he's doing well considering. ABC's Valle has the very latest.
First, of course,
Former President George H.W. Bush is recovering at this hospital in Portland, Maine this morning, suffering from a fractured vertebrae in his neck after falling at home. He is fine, says his spokesman, in stable condition and will not need surgery. It's not known yet how or why the 91-year-old fell at his summer home in Kennebunkport, Maine, pictured there last month at a family gathering in the wheelchair he's been using for the last 2 years as he battles a form of Parkinson's disease, one of several health issues the former president has faced since leaving office. Diagnosed with Graves' disease in 1991, a thyroid condition. 2 years ago, he spent 2 months in a Houston hospital for a bronchitis-related cough and other issues, and just last December, a week in the same hospital for shortness of breath. But Bush 41, the nation's oldest living former president, has hardly let those health challenges slow him down. Just last summer, marking his 90th birthday with a thrilling skydive near his home in Maine, just as he did for his 75th, 80th, and 85th. This morning, a spokesman for the family says President Bush is optimistic about his recovery, fully expecting to be back in Texas by the start of football season. Because of the fractured vertebrae, President Bush will have to wear a neck brace, probably for a couple of months. We don't know yet how long he's expected to be in the hospital. Bazi Kanani, ABC News, Washington.
Well, El Paso is getting on board with streetcars.
What City Council has in mind for the return of the classic downtown trolleys and what details still need to be worked out this morning.
Plus, one team is trying to break records with their solar-powered airplane, but the attempt has hit some turbulence.
And let's check in with Crystal. She's got a look at our current conditions out there right now. Good morning.
Good morning. We're tracking a tropical system that might help us get a little moisture in the borderland. We'll talk about it after your break.
Thanks, Crystal. This is ABC 7, where news comes first.